think you're muted, Josh.
Well, here we go with the amateur mess ups already.
Nice start. Nice start.
Absolutely. You can't get any better than that. Hey, everybody, welcome to Big Red Live. I'm your host, Josh. Joined with me is coaches Tom Harper, Tim McMahon, and finally tonight making a rare appearance is the father of Big Red here, Tom Dula. So, how are you guys doing tonight?
Awesome.
Big Red Live, as always, is sponsored by Blue 42. Coach Harper, you got to try out Blue 42 on Friday night for the first time ever, I believe. What's your thoughts on Blue 42, Coach?
I'm gonna tell you right now that was I was surprised. Very, very good. Matter of fact, uh, fried mushrooms and I had chicken fingers. And I'm gonna tell you right now, those chicken fingers. Oh my gosh! What? I
Oh
think
my
that's.
God, good, ain't they? Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
God, they're wonderful. I think that's exactly what they're called. And I'm telling you, it was very good. Coach Mack had something he really enjoyed. His wife had something she really enjoyed. It was delicious.
What you have, Mac?
I had a burger with roast beef under it. It was really it was
No, roast beef on top of it with cheese on top of it and everything. Great for anybody that's trying to, protein diet it.
yeah.
And it looked delicious.
Salad was wonderful. The
Burger
drinks were
really well.
yeah. I was shocked. That's the first time I've been in there. I really like the it's not a huge place and they got big TVs, so when you get an older like me, you can really a bigger TV up closer is even better to look at. And I think it'd be a great place to watch a game.
Atmosphere was awesome.
The menu is all kind of cool. It had like the pregame were the appetizers, and I thought that was good, and home run plates and stuff like that. It was just really, I like to have it set up. I love the food, so highly recommend that 42 place.
Yes.
We all look like we know what we're talking about when we talk about food, don't we?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a labor of love, Tom.
I went to try to help out the show. That's the only reason I went. I mean,
Yeah,
you
you
tell you
guys,
it looks like I eat. I do. I love to eat.
you doers need to get another sponsorship from a restaurant. We'd be glad to.
That's right.
Well, we got
Well,
countryside.
Yeah,
You got
Coach,
who?
we'll get you up to Countryside Barbecue to try that.
Where's that at?
Now let's go with some barbecue as well. That's fine.
Yeah, go try out Countryside Barbecue there in Marion. Really good barbecue there, too. And
Where is
also
it?
other
It's
courteous
in Marion.
sponsors here for Big Red Sports Network.
Did you
Okay.
say it's in Marion?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Well, it better be good for that drive.
All right, everybody. So before we get started today, we're going to be talking about the winners of the weekly poll. First things first, I'm pulling this up right now. Just give me a second. Oh, I lost it for a second, then I had it. All right, so for this week's winners, Mike Gendron is the Scoreboard Challenge winner for a Countryside Barbecue certificate. And for the pick and poll this week, we had an 11-way tie, which I don't know, Tom. Is that the first time we've ever had an 11-way tie for a winner for the pick and poll?
And that's an all-time record.
I mean,
11 way tie.
that is an unbelievable amount of people to tie for the win. So we're gonna have to do another drawing for that. Give me a second here to pull up
That's unheard of.
our wheel of names here, as we're gonna add this to the stream to see who is going to be eligible to get the Blue 42 certificate. So here we go. We're going to spin it right now to see who is going to win this week.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
And this week's winner is going to be Dustin Fry.
Go ahead.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Dustin Fry on winning this week's Blue 42 Pick and Poll Challenge. As always, we post our pick and polls every week, starting at the very beginning of the week. So make sure to do that. Make sure to have your entries in by 5 p.m. on Friday evening. So that way you can participate and have your opportunity to win a Blue 42 certificate and also participate in the Scoreboard Challenge. All you have to do is guess the final score of this week's game. the games that we select, and once again, you have an opportunity to win something there with the Countryside Barbecue certificate. All right, getting into this week's action for Week 4, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. A lot of different games went on this week, and a lot of just mind-blowing scores this week for Week 3 of football action. So we're going to start with some of the local games. Fat Friday, Freedom 61, East Burke 22, Wilkes Central 41, Drawn 0, Bunker Hill 0, Hickory 49, High Bratton 42, St. Stephen's 21, East Lincoln 49, Newton Conover 21, East Rutherford 84, College Prep and Leadership Academy 8, Mitchell 38, Andrews 7, Crest 56, Asheville 12. And then as we go down, some of the bigger games in the area last night: Union Academy 44, Lincoln Charter 42, Maiden 54, North Lincoln 36, Mountain Heritage 50, Robbinsville 19, Watauga 61, Mount Airy 7, Owen 22, Patton 7. Burns 52, East Gaston nothing, Chase 28, Blacksburg 20, Alexander Central 34, Ashe County 7, Kings Mountain 34, Bandy's 29, East Wilkes 35, North Iredell 14. And Shelby and Highland Tech, one of the scores that I've probably never really ever see in high school football: Shelby 90, Highland Tech 0, Mountain Island Charter 49, West Caldwell 22, West Lincoln 50, Bessemer City 15, Brevard 37, Irwin 14. And then here's some of the other scores here at the bottom: TC Roberson over AC Reynolds 49-21, East Henderson 10, Rosman 28, and then Blue Ridge 39 over Polk County 19. Coaches, what's your thoughts on the Week 3 scores? Any scores that stand out to you?
Well, I tell you right now, Watauga must be great, or Mount Airy is really down. I don't know which one, but that score was not what I thought it was going to be.
Now, I don't want to discredit Watauga's win over Mount Airy, because it's a very dominant win over a really good football team. But word on the street was that Mount Airy's star running back was not playing for the Granite Bears this week.
I don't believe he plays defense, Josh.
That's right. I mean, come on, that's a
Good point, though, because if you got a good running back can help your defense by staying off the field. But I'm just, everybody, the word on the street, and I talked to their coach, Watauga's coach last year briefly, and talked about how many people he was losing, and I don't think he felt like that they would be, they have the results that they're having. And I mean, they might be the leading scoring team in Western North Carolina. They have a Freedom, almost have to be, and it's just I don't know that I'm overly shocked at the final result, but I am pretty surprised by the score difference.
I mean, that just wasn't what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be much closer, because Mount Airy has always been a predominantly state championship team. So
I'd like to know last time Mount Airy lost a game by 52 points, or I believe that's right, but or 53 points. But it's been a long time.
I bet so too.
I bet they have a hard time remembering that. One thing to lose, it's another thing to be that dominated in a football game. So, and I thought that the Bandy's Kings Mountain game was a little bit telling. I thought Kings Mountain's got a very good football team. I watched them play the first week against Shelby, and I thought that Bandy's Kings Mountain game might have been as good a game as it was the whole weekend. It was a back and forth tight game, and went down late, and Kings Mountain held on for the win. So Bandy's must have a pretty good football team.
I think Bandy's going to conference this year. I think they can win on any given Friday.
I know nobody likes to say but that's a quality loss for a Bandy's football team.
Yes, sir. That is a quality loss, and Bandy's has not been that competitive in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
they've been, kind of down, and it looks like they are finally kind of turning the corner a little bit and trying to be as competitive as a lot of old Bandy's teams used to be, which that's good to see.
And then that TC and Reynolds played?
Yeah.
Yeah, that score was a little bit surprising to me, considering the past week's results. I didn't think it would be that wide of a scored margin.
That, and usually that's a much more competitive game.
Yeah,
and that was a wide gap between win and loss. And I thought AC Reynolds was a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
TC must be pretty good.
What
Well,
was
coaches, let's take a moment real quick to take a look at the game that you guys called on Friday night between Owen and Patton. Obviously, it was the very first game that Patton played in Panther Stadium since 2023, and you guys got to be able to watch the game. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that specific game as well.
Well, I think that the 22 to 7, I believe that was the final. That was a 15-point game, but I think scrimmage wise, and what I mean by that, just plays from scrimmage, offense, defense, especially. I think Patton actually scrimmaged better than that outcome. And I think the number of penalties that they incurred, and particularly key penalties, the first drive, they're basically getting ready to 3 and out. Owen's ready to punt the ball. They are punting, and they rough the kicker to continue that drive. They get another 4th down and about 3 or 4 yards, and they jump off sides, continue the drive. And the end result was Owen holds on to the ball about 9 minutes of that quarter and scores. And so Patton's offense basically only touches it one time in the first quarter. And then they had a few other penalties at wrong times, couple balls on the ground. But I think, I'm not saying that they scrimmaged good enough to be that they should have won the game, but they scrimmaged very competitively. But their mistakes, particularly in the bad penalties at the wrong time, really was the difference in that football game. And they actually had a chance. And I was impressed with the backup quarterback coming in after the starter got hurt and, executing a great post pattern for a big play. And then the talented running back they have finally gets loose and scores in 2 plays. And they're right back in that football game. But I think their defense got a little worn down and they just couldn't get off the field. But, I think it was a better football game. Not that the 22-7 is even that big a difference, but I was pretty surprised that they scrimmaged as even as they did, actually.
I think the same thing when it comes to the thoughts about the game. I think that it was they kept shooting themselves in the foot, and they get those solved, they're going to be a much more competitive football team against people that they could beat if they don't do those things. And I enjoyed it. I think Billy Wisnett has done a great job in a position that is almost, it's hard to do what you're doing in a position like that, because you're starting from below ground level, basically. And, so many, you just have to work the lunchroom, and you got to get kids out. And I think that's what he's trying to do. We had the chance to go early and sit in with his staff. I think his staff is a great group of men that really have the right kind of attitude about coaching young people and want to see the program get better. And what you do in that position when you're administration is you make sure that he has all the resources he can get. And I hope that's what's happening. But I'm proud of what Coach Wisnett has done. And I think that it's just going to get better.
Yeah, I would agree. Anytime you're building a program, you kind of worry about injuries because their numbers aren't good. And I think, the quarterback had a fairly serious injury Friday. I'm not going to speak to how serious, I don't know, but he wasn't able to go back in the game. And he was, he was looking pretty good at the end there. So getting off the field. So, they may have to very well play with a backup quarterback. I'm not sure, but they can't sustain many of those injuries. And that's the thing when you're building that program. He don't have as many bullets in the chamber as a lot of teams. And when those bullets start dwindling, it gets even harder. But they played extremely hard. They never gave up physically. They brought everything they had with it, and that's really all you can ask. And they'll improve. And I think you got to remember, it's only the second varsity game that any of those kids have played in. And I think that's great. It could have been the seniors might have played in, but I think that's probably mostly true. So only playing the whole team's the most experience they've had in varsity levels two games. So you should expect there are going to be a lot of mistakes. I don't care who's coaching that football team. I don't care if it's Nick Saban or Vince Lombardi. It don't matter. There are going to be mistakes because they've just got to experience those mistakes to learn from them. And I don't care how many times you tell them or however you go over, that's going to happen. So the quicker they can get that cleaned up and they gain experience and take away the hurting themselves, they'll have some opportunities. But I do worry about the injuries. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. And that comes, like Tom saying, getting more kids out.
And I will tell you this, it was a fun experience game-wise. I thought that, the kids were out there in the student section, very involved. They didn't screw around and get in trouble, as far as we know. They were out there cheering for their team. The community came out. It's the only thing we complain about is the press box. They can't do much about that right now. So everything else was really fun to be around. They want to be good.
It's the first time I've been to Patton on a couple of different occasions, but it's the first time I've been in the press box for any extended time and had an opportunity just to look out. What a setting for a football field.
Mm-hmm.
South Mountain sitting back there and that bowl. And Tom was going, it was just a beautiful, the weather was perfect. And then, I was really impressed with, like Tom was saying, not just the football team, but the band was sounded great. They were enthusiastic. I noticed that they played when they were supposed to play, and they didn't play when they weren't supposed to play. It didn't hurt the football team, but they were loud. And their halftime performance, I glanced at there a couple times, and it just looked sharp. The cheerleaders looked sharp. Everything in the stadium. So other than the final result on the field, and I don't think there's anything to be hanging your head about that. I think the team played extremely hard, and they made mistakes, and they can correct. And so, overall, everybody gets caught up in all that scoreboard all the time. But other than that, and that is really not something you should focus in on right now in that program. But for the first game in 2 years, I thought you'd have to give it a big thumbs up.
Amen.
There's something about the environment of being in a high school environment, in a stadium with the band and everything. It's like you guys sit in here last week giving me flack about the junior year being in the band. Band is near and dear to my heart. And, it's an experience. I mean, people need to get out and support these teams every Friday night in these stadiums because, there's nothing else like it. I mean, football, any sport on a high school level is the most pure form of sports that we have left.
Amen.
And I think any principal that has any clue about how to administrate a school, they'll know that on a football Friday night, more of your student body is outperforming. And it's not just the football team, but it's your student body who comes to cheer, your cheerleaders, and your band. And no other time will that school get more eyeballs focused on what they're doing and what they're about than a football Friday night. And that's why it's so important that we go support these kids and let them know how important it is. Because, like I said, if a principal's any good, they're going to know that real quick.
Well, if the principal's any good, he understands that the band, the cheerleaders, the football team, all that is integral to what you just said, the Friday night experience. And somebody comes to watch the game like you and I did, Coach Mack, that's something that we're going to look at and talk about. And Joe Q Public is going to do the same thing. And when you have all those aligned in being the best they can be, it is something for people to come back and be a part of, and they enjoy it.
I don't think there's any more better. It's not a better measure stick for a health of a school or how well it's doing or what its potential is than a football Friday night. And I'm not talking about the scoreboard or even the football team. That's certainly part of it. But the band, the cheerleaders, the student trainers, hey, we didn't mention most of these places have an ROTC that's doing parking, and that's important. The ROTC part, but there's these students that are in ROTC are doing the parking concessions. It just all goes. If that's running off clean and efficient, you can bet you there's probably a pretty good chance that's a good school.
Amen.
Well, I know that, talking to both of you guys after your experience being there at the game, Friday night, both of you guys were impressed, with, all aspects of, the game time experience. But one thing I'd like to kick in there that we hadn't talked about yet was, on behalf of Big Red Sports Network, I'd like to thank you two guys for stepping in and, doing the live stream for us. And, that to us, granted, it's a proof of concept was, that's our very first live stream for a football game. So, we had some issues with the, getting everything right, but we're learning as we go. And, I just can't thank both of you guys enough for, stepping in and doing what you did. I mean, you made the impossible for us become possible. And you just don't know how much I appreciate it, guys.
Well, you need to know, number one, we enjoy being with each other and being able to talk about football to the people out there, whoever they may be. That's fun for us. And I appreciate the way Mac and I talk about it. I'm smart enough to let him do what the play-by-play because he's good at that. So I also enjoy he'll come back every once in a while and ask me what he thinks, what I think about what happened, or we just work well together. We always have. We have a good friend that told us one time we're like peanut butter and jelly. We just go together. We just go together. And that's the way I feel about it. He's my best friend and somebody I really enjoy being with because we don't spend a whole lot of time together. So really, we should be thanking you for giving us the opportunity to be together and to call a game something, we love football and we're out of it now. And we both probably could have chances to go back, but we really don't want to. So it gives us an opportunity to be around the experience of football Friday night, which we miss. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Well, we're going to see if maybe we can work out something else in the near future going forward that might give us another opportunity to do some more. So, just stay tuned. We'll see what's on the horizon for us. Now, Josh, I do one thing I need to pass along to you, and that was last week at the live stream. Bob Duckworth was kind of offended that you did not stand up for his honor. So I needed to pass that along to you when Tom Harper had that to say about Bob winning the weekly contest.
That's because he understands that it could have been true.
All I'm saying is that if you have to get defensive about it, there's got to be something to it,
I'm going to tell you right now, there's not any more honorable person than Bob Duckworth. And this was all in jest, I promise you. If it gets to the point where I don't talk trash about Bob Duckworth, then we probably need to look and see what he's been doing.
Yeah, Bob got a big laugh out of that, but he did want me to tell Josh that, next time Bob expects you to stand up for his honor. All right, Josh, what are we going to talk about next?
Well, coaches, we all know that this year we every year as a high school football coach, it can be difficult. Not only just being able to coach a football team, but having to deal with outside noise. And for some programs, particularly programs that have, even for programs that have had recent success, some are going through a rebuilding phase right now, and some of it can lead to frustrations in the fan base and lead to maybe fans acting out in the stands and just make it overall a lot more difficult for coaches. So I wanted to open this up to you, coaches, because you've obviously been in this situation before with a rebuilding program, and even during the years where you've had good times where you still have that outside noise. How do you, as a coach, address outside noise, whether it be just negativity stuff, all that, and how do you address that, and how do you keep everything positive within the program?
Well, I think number one, you don't address it. I mean, you might address it to your team if it involves your team. But I think you can't let those people know that they're getting to you. And so you kind of leave that to administration. And if it continues to happen, that is what administration is for. They are not there just to watch the game. They are there to police the surroundings, and anybody that goes crazy, they take care of it immediately. How they handle it is how they handle it. It should be out of the coach's hands, period. Now, I know Coach Mack has got some thoughts on this because we've both been through it.
Yeah.
He's won a whole lot more games than I have, so he probably hasn't been through it as much as I have. But I had, any place I ever was, we started off not real good, and we had issues with parents. And if that's what that was, I don't even know what the situation is. I just know what I've heard. And if it's has anything to do with the crowd, that is off limits, in my opinion. You don't even acknowledge it. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about several different things at one time, but uh, as far as it kind of breaks up into, like Tom's saying, different parts of this. Number one, what he's saying about it, what happens in the stadium on a Friday night, or even at a basketball game. Being athletic director, I'm not sure I've had to deal with both sides of this. I've been on the field, and anything that happens in that stadium that gets to the point that a family member of a coach, or even a family member of a player, is feeling like they're so offended, that needs to be addressed to an administrator. That needs to be addressed immediately to an administrator. If it's something so offensive that it is so upsetting, then the administrator can come there and monitor that. And if it happens again, they can address it, because I've had to be that administrator, and I'm sure Tom has. And I've had to ask good friends to come with me and to calm down, or to even leave the venue, because that's just not acceptable at a high school level. We can't what happens in our home stands and what is said. We can't. It doesn't, because you buy a ticket, doesn't give you free reign in a scholastic athletic contest to belittle or demean a coach, a player of any kind, or any student at that game.
That's what they say. They say, I bought a ticket. Well, doesn't mean you get to just verbalize what you feel.
This isn't professional sports.
Right.
And even in professional, there's a line that you can't cross. Granted, that line's a lot farther than it is in high school, but that line is right there. And the person that makes that decision is the administrator, either a principal or an athletic director, and they need to make sure they make that decision. That's number one. If I gave you a lesson I learned from Pete Stout. I was 21 years old. I was a student coach, and I was coaching at Catawba, and I was on the staff. I say student because they worked me like a dog, but we were leaving halftime going back to the locker room. And at Catawba, the people could lean over going out that side, and they were giving Coach Stout a hard time. And to me, Coach Stout walked on water, and he was all I was working for, and I would have fist fought at anybody for him. And I jumped a little bit as I was walking out. He heard it coming down. I was right beside him, and I remember I looked up, and he grabbed me on the arm and said, "Tim, let me tell you one thing. If you're going to be in this business, you cannot have rabbit ears." And I knew exactly what he meant. He said, "You got to let that go in ear and out the other. No rabbit ears in this business. You're going to get criticized." And Tom was talking about winning more games. I'm going to tell you a situation I got into. One of the most successful teams we ever fielded at Freedom High School. In 1999, we were undefeated in the regular season. And we went to go at our banquet at the end of the season. And we had a great defense. We had a really good defense. We had the defensive player of the year, Brad Preston. Oh, gosh, we had Albert Reed, who was probably the all-time leading tackler. That may still be the all-time leading tackler for the school. We had the Pritchard boys. We were just really good on defense, and some others. And it was very difficult, hard at the end of the season to deal out the individual awards like player of the year and all this. And, Albert Reed and Brad Preston was defensive player of the year conference. It was tough. It was really hard. And here we are, undefeated regular season. And the worst, I won't say cussing, but the worst public people getting in my face in a public situation that I ever experienced was after that banquet, after an undefeated season. And it just blew me away. I'm like, wait a minute, we just won all our games, and I am still catching it because of a doggone banquet. So that shows you that people can get real emotional about these things. Even when you win, you still might hear some of that. You've just got to be able to walk away from that. That being said, you never, ever, ever, never, ever put yourself in a situation, I believe, like Tom is saying, where you have to respond back. And the 24-hour rule, I think we mentioned it before, that's very important. And I didn't do that as a young coach. When I was at Freedom at 32 and Tom was with us, I didn't have that rule because I didn't get a whole lot of that anyway back then. But when I got out of Morgan and started getting some people that were, I don't know because I wasn't well enough, but they started thinking they could approach me at the end of games about coaching decisions, about playing decisions. It become real. I understood real quickly. I got to do something about this. And so for 24 hours, that couldn't be talked about. That's you want to talk to me, well, we're going to make an appointment. It's going to be one-on-one, or it's going to be through email community. It's not going to be out here in the public because half of them is just running on emotion anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And out in the stands, parents have a lot invested. People who come to games, and they have a lot of investment. I understand that emotion can get the best of them, but you get one warning maybe, unless it's too bad, and then after that, you got to go. That person has to leave the stadium. That's what has to happen. It takes a strong athletic director. It takes a principal who will support the athletic director. Whoever's in that position to be doing that, they have to stand up, because if they don't, and it gets too far away, and those abusive comments hurt in the stadium that much, guess what's going to happen? Eventually, your attendance is going to stop because people don't want to be around that.
Either that or it opens up Pandora's box and everybody feels like they've got a point to make to the head football coach. I mean, that was why the team meetings at the beginning of the year were so important to me because, it was something that the North Carolina High School Athletic Association wanted you to do. But I decided I was going to lay down the ground rules. I didn't care if it was going to offend some of these parents. I wanted them to know exactly what the rules were. And the rule was with me, we didn't talk about playing time. If that was part of it, we did not talk about it. And if you came to talk to me about playing time, I handed your kid's jersey to you. And I told him that. I said, you will not come to me and talk to me about it. Now, if my principal told me, yes, you will, then we figured out a different rule. But luckily, I don't think I ever had a principal ever tell me you can't do that. Because you have to establish those kind of. Now, today, now in today's society, you almost have to give them a meeting because everybody's got an opinion. But there was a 24-hour rule if we had that. We emotionally, we had to get away from each other because it was going to be, if you expected me not to react, you were crazy. That's why we couldn't talk to each other. That's why that principal and that athletic director has to handle that. Now, fortunately, but unfortunately, I was the athletic director a lot of times at different places, but I had a solid assistant athletic director who took the reins, and I wanted them to do that. It's a tough situation, but you cannot, as a coach, in my opinion, react to that in a public forum. You just can't do it because now whoever is goading you knows, oh, I got them now. They're reacting.
Josh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, my phone changed on me, so I don't can I still hear or not. Yeah, the reason we're having this conversation tonight is, we've seen a lot of chatter online about, people complaining about some of the teams in the area. And it's not just a particular team, it's several teams and it's several counties. You got some teams that are struggling, that are rebuilding, and they're young. And for whatever reason, the fans are getting frustrated, and they just seem to think that, they can go in here and they can say anything. And, people just got to understand that, you just can't flip a switch and make a young team, perform at a high level in half a season.
That's the great thing about high school ball is it is up and down. It is cyclic, and you are going to have tough years where you have to let those kids gain experience, and the public don't really understand that. So now we have all these avenues to just I'm going to give you my opinion regardless of where you are in your level of football. And it's sad to me, but we had it when we were coaching too, didn't we, Mac?
Somewhat. Yes, we did. You just have to put all, that, like I said, what happens in the stands is one thing, getting on coaches after games, that's another thing. But all coaches will be able to tell you this the longer they're in this business. It don't matter how much success you have. You're only as good as the last ball game you coached. And Coach Rogers, Terry Rogers, when we were at Freedom, we had lost a tough game near the end of his career. He was just about to retire. We had lost a tough football game. And he had heard the fans basically, it was my fault. And you know what? They're probably right that time. But he knew it. You knew it hurt me. And he came to me in a moment of counsel and said, "So I want to tell you a story." As only Coach Rogers could tell his stories. He said, "I was coaching football at Oak Hill, assistant football coach, and we were playing Glen Alpine High School. And I forget the year, but it was right near the end of consolidation, I believe. And he said, Coach Wilson brought his team over, and everybody knows that there was no more legend in this county than Coach Wilson throughout the 60s and most of the 70s. And he said, we got them. We beat them that night. And I'll never forget walking off the field, all these people standing on the fence line, giving Coach Wilson down the road and telling him he's too old and needed to retire. And these were right after the game, and these were Glen Alpine folks. He said, it always stuck with me that here's a legend, and they're ready to express their comments to him. So I think that this kind of sometimes goes with this business. I've seen very successful coaches getting a little run, and then before you know it, they're talking about, they forgot that he's won all the championships. They just want to know what he did last Friday. So all these are lessons, the Coach Stout and all. I've learned a lot about, and now that I'm older and I can sit on the outside and look in, I understand exactly what they mean.
I understand exactly what I mean, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I still get fired up about stuff like that, and I'm a much more emotional reactor than Mac is. It bothers me that people don't understand. I mean, it's like we don't even understand what we're doing, and we've just all of a sudden just lost it.
I'm gonna cut you off real quick because I probably got too long, but I got to tell this story because it is hilarious. It is the truth. It is exactly what we're talking about. Our first year at Freedom, we're not winning a lot of games. In fact, I think we'd only won one game at the time, and we went over to West Caldwell to play a football game. And we were in the game, and our defense, Tom's defense was playing great. I don't think we're only down by like 7-0 at half, which was at that time of the year was that part of the season pretty good for us. And we were walking off there at West Caldwell going towards the end zone for halftime. And somebody from our sideline in the bleachers shouted, and me and Tom were beside each other. I mean, they shouted loud enough for everybody in that ballpark to hear. He said, "Hey, Harper, why don't you take your big ASS back to Catawba?" And I'll never forget Tom, without batting an eye, turned around and said, "If they would have me, I'd go tonight." That's a true story.
That just tells you how I am.
I said, Tom.
I couldn't ignore it. I mean, but he was talking to me, so I was going to react. I had to say something. I wish I was there right now.
Yeah, he said if they'd have me, I'd go tonight. Oh, it was so good. But even then, way back then, so this isn't a necessarily new problem, but I think I know, and I'm the last one to be talking about social media because I'm so inept at it, but I believe it's just getting so more communicated and so more spoke about. And, usually it was contained to Friday night and you might deal with it then and then it was over. But now it seems to linger with these people talking about things. And I don't sure that's good or bad. I don't know. But I do think that, we're still talking about it here on Sunday night.
So, Mac, you're saying Harper didn't pass the 24-second rule on that one, right?
24. No, he didn't pass no second rule. That was immediate response, and it was hilarious. But no, he didn't. We didn't.
I had to. It was just they pinched me, and I had to pinch back.
He broke Coach Stout's golden rule.
Yeah, I would not be real. Coach Stout. No, I actually coached on Coach Stout's staff as well, and he didn't like the fact that I had an opinion about stuff like that. So. Yeah, I understand now. I do understand now that you have to keep your mouth shut, but it's just hard for me to keep my mouth shut.
Well, obviously, social media makes everything a lot worse nowadays.
Oh my gosh, everybody's got an opinion.
Everybody expresses it, and it's out there, and it's just a back and forth ping pong thing. Speaking of Coach Stout, he was pretty stoic, wasn't he, Coach? You didn't tell if he's up by 50 or down by 50.
He was consistent emotionally as anybody I've ever been around. Very stoic. You didn't know what he was thinking.
If you fumbled or you scored a touchdown, it's the same thing.
That's right. And that's exactly the way you need to do it.
Well, I can't do it.
I know I can't either. So God bless you.
Josh, all right, guys, let's go ahead and move on and take a look at what Week 4 is going to have in store for the high school football stage. A lot of big-time matchups that could be potentially on the slate this week. So we're going to go ahead and put it in here. Here for Week 4 football schedule, you got your teams on bye this week. It'll be drawn East Burke, East Rutherford, Fred T. Ford, High Brighton, Watauga, and West Caldwell. Some of the games in the area, you got Alexander at Statesville, McDowell at Avery County, Bandy's at East Lincoln, Maiden at Bunker Hill, Lincolnton at Burns, Madison at Chase, Weddington at Crest, Freedom at T.C. Roberson, Hickory at Newton Conover, Kings Mountain at Charlotte, Lincoln Charter at South Lake Christian, Mitchell at Robbinsville, Mountain Heritage at Swain County, St. Stephen's at North Iredell, North Lincoln at West Iredell, West Henderson at Owen, Polk County at Patton, R.S. Central at Chesney, Shelby at West Lincoln, North Gaston at South Caldwell, and Cabarrus Stallions at Thomas Jefferson. Coaches, there's a lot of really intriguing matchups this week. I know for a fact Coach Mack is going to keep a big eye on that Freedom at TC Roberson game. But one game that really stands out to me that would be a really good measuring board to see how the 5A division is going to be is the Weddington at Crest game. What's your
Amen.
thoughts on that?
That's going to be interesting because you got a team in Weddington that has really done a great job of being much more competitive and like winning at the highest level every year. And it's gonna be an interesting matchup. You're right.
Yeah, Crest is looks like they're loaded for bear this year, and they're just coming off a big lopsided victory against Asheville, and that's going to be a great bellwether game for down the road. We'll be able to get a good indication on both football teams from that game, no doubt. And yes, Josh, the TC Freedom game is going to be a bellwether game as well because Freedom has scored a ton of points, but they're definitely stepping up in competition this week. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. Can't argue with anything they've done to this point, but let's see what the results are and if they can execute to the level they've been executing against Roberson. I think it'll tell us a whole lot about how we move forward.
I tell you another one that I think is interesting is Bandy's at East Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Bandy's has been very competitive, and been almost to the competitive level of some old Bandy's high school teams. And East Lincoln, they're probably, as Max says, loaded for bear as well. So that will be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I was very impressed.
Robertson was a direct comparison to how Freedom compares to Watauga because Watauga beat Robertson 42-0. So that'll be an opponent, and that'll give us one indication of how those two teams kind of stack up against each other.
Josh, what was the TC score with Reynolds this week?
TC beat Reynolds 49-21.
Wow.
There you go.
Well, scores all over the place. So, I don't know what to think because, it wasn't just last week that Reynolds came down the mountain and beat Maiden.
Yeah, and that was a big game.
And so, I don't know. I know that, I think that Roberson Freedom game has potential to be the best, one of the best, probably the best matchup of the weekend. And, Crest and Weddington there, too.
See, another game that's going under the radar for this week that a lot of people have been talking about, especially in Cleveland County. Lincolnton traveling to Burns to play at Burns.
I think that's going to be a heck of a matchup.
That's an interesting matchup. It really is. Very, very interesting.
I've had the opportunity to coach at Lincolnton, and those are passionate people about football. They love football. It started back with Coach Smith and Coach Cloninger, and they're hungry and they want to be good. And they've got a new head coach who's doing a heck of a job, got a good staff, and they feel like they're getting back to what they used to be. So that's why they're talking about it, because they're going up against a team that has done a heck of a job as well and has brought back a lot of the same feelings about some old Burns teams. And so you get those kind of two teams together, people get excited.
Yeah, that's a good matchup as far as the inter-county matchup there with Lincoln. And I don't know if they played in the past. I don't remember that matchup. It's possible, but that's a really deep matchup, Lincoln and Burns. That's be very interesting. And,
I've got a question for you, Big Red. Does Freedom, is Watauga in the same conference with Freedom? I don't know that.
Yes.
Well, that's going to be interesting down the road.
That's why the game Friday night, I think, is going to be a pretty good measuring stick as to what we might expect of what kind of game we'll get 2 weeks from then, which is when Freedom host Watauga. Now, Freedom's got to play Reynolds. They go Roberson and then Reynolds. So the TC game that this weekend will be. I'm just going to say it what it is. It's the real first time that I think they played a team that can somewhat match up with Freedom.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
First test of the year, really.
The first
Yes.
first games they've had really been, and I don't mean anything disrespectful to Patton and Drone and East Burke, but the fact of the matter is that they don't match up with Freedom, and Freedom probably were tested more in practice than they were the games. That's just the way it is. I don't mean to offend anybody. That's just the
Well, those programs are down right now, and
and so
Freedom's coming
really,
up.
it really wasn't good for Freedom or the other teams. In other words, Freedom by week 3, you need to be able to know what you're missing on a football team or what your sore spots are. And they may know it, but it's nothing like you can find out things more when kids are put in adversity where your weak spots are, and then you can address them. Actually, I believe Friday night might be the only first time we get a chance to see that. And we really don't know till they play. Maybe Freedom is a 60-point a game team. I doubt it. I mean, just because most teams aren't. So it's going to be good for Freedom High School. It's going to be good. So regardless of the outcome, at least they're going to be able to have one more week before these games start really counting in their conference, before they have to host Watauga, who I would say by their scores are favorite or right there with Freedom. But both teams are scoring a ton of points. That Watauga Freedom game, if this trend continues, could be the longest game of the year.
Let me ask you guys something. With these lopsided games that Freedom's been in for the first 3 weeks of the season, their starters are only getting maybe half a game of play, if that.
Yep.
At this point, going 4th week of the season, is that a handicap for them?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I believe,
and that's why we're saying how interesting this is going to be.
People see scores, but as far as overall team development, this is not good, and in my opinion. And it's nothing. It's not the coaches. This is nothing about the coaches. It's schedule's the schedule, but you don't want. You need to be tested. A quality loss can help you more than a terrible
lopsided win. Yeah,
that's not what you're looking for. You want to be tested. Yeah, you want to win the games, but just because you don't win a non-conference game doesn't determine the outcome of your season. And in fact, a loss could actually propel you into having a better season. But we don't
point from a conditioning aspect. Yeah. Is Freddie getting hurt? Their players aren't being properly conditioned as he are?
Absolutely, because I told you the only way to get in game shape is to play plays. You can run, but true game conditioning recurs when you're playing competitive plays. And if you're not getting enough competitive plays, then yes, your conditioning may show up. It is, that's just the way it happens. I've had teams get into that. We had a defense at Anson County that was so good, and our offense was so good one year that our defense averaged 39 plays a game. And then we got into the 3rd or 4th round of the playoffs, play Kings Mountain, got into a shootout, and and we ended up playing 90 plays, and it absolutely tore our defense up because by the end, we didn't have any kids left. They were all cramped out. And this was the last game we played. It was our 14th game. But because we hadn't had to play more than a few plays a game because we were so dominant in the regular season and even in the playoffs, our kids just hadn't been there. It's like a fighter. Like if a fighter is knocking everybody out in the first 2 rounds, the first time he has to go the distance, he's not had to go down and get that. So I'm happy. I'm happy for this contest for Freedom because they need as good a competition as they can get before they get to that conference. And hopefully these next 2 weeks with Roberson and Reynolds, it'll be a step up and they'll get tested.
Great discussion tonight, guys. I appreciate it. Josh, we need to wrap this up. I just got a notice from Walmart that my grocery pickup order is ready, and I need to. So,
hey, we're glad you were included.
Going to shout out to Albert Reed for his recognition tonight. So, Coach Reed, there you go, buddy. We're thinking of you tonight. Josh,
Coach Reed.
Guys.
Yeah, for final announcements for Big Red Live tonight, the Glen Alpine Hall of Fame induction ceremony will be held October 18th at Glen Alpine United Methodist Church Fellowship Center. South Caldwell's Athletics Hall of Fame, the 2025 inductees will be honored at halftime on September 19th during the football game versus TC Roberson. Lastly, our final announcements. Once again, Big Red Live is sponsored by Blue 42. Coach Harper, like I said, you tried them chicken tenders. What'd you think?
Oh my God, those chicken fingers. Oh my God.
You got the oh my god good chicken tenders at the Blue 42. Hopefully home with the big red tender basket soon. And then finally, Countryside Barbecue. We appreciate our sponsors as always for being able to allow us to do the giveaways and just helping us out with Big Red Live. Anyways, that's all we got for you for Week 4's preview. We will catch you guys at the same time next week for Week 5's preview. And that's all I got. Say bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank y'all.